This audio has been taken from the Citizens Archive of Pakistan's Oral History Project.
As a little child, in the family also, we all used to sing and all. We grew up in a beautiful little valley. You'll read about it in my book. And from childhood, living in a valley, you naturally heard all nature's sounds. They were beautiful. And then we had Nepalis coming as gardeners looking after the entire area because it was all British colonial stuff. So along the hills, there were all these beautiful bungalows by the British and running orchards. And running down was the stream, which went right around the town. And we grew up in that environment. So music was always part of my life. And of course, being in the Western thing, I used to sing all the popular movie songs. And we had musicals those days. And it was a wonderful world, And there was no discrimination at all. We were all kinds of people from, different religions, different backgrounds. But we gelled so beautifully together. So it was a wonderful childhood. And then I became a product of the Second World War at the age of 8. So it was, as an 8-year-old child, it's fun, we don't realize the impact of what war really is. So we had to, because my father was friendly with the local British commissioner, so we were lucky, we were the few non-British families were allowed to fly out of Burma. And we were allowed to carry very little. So the whole house was left as it was, completely as though we just left it to go shopping or something. Everything was there. We left. And from there, we had to travel to, where did we go from? From there we went, so we were flown to Chittagong. And from there, we had to take a boat to Bombay. And from there, as a family, we were known as evacuees. And no business, nothing. So the government used to give us some stipend to my father. So we had to take a place to live in. And then we had to go to school. So we went to, I must say that we stopped at Calcutta first. And I decided to begin life on my own. So I take up shorthand and typing, and then I get a job. I hate sitting in front of the typewriter, so I go and join a travel agency. And that was wonderful. But you see, the important thing is, my life, I think you all should get my books and read them. But the main thing was that after I got married, lived in India, I worked in the Pakistan National Oils. And I worked for Tina Sani's father. I was his confidential secretary. Now, I didn't like it. So then I started a beauty salon for which I had trained in Bombay. So the first beauty salon opened in Tariq Road. And there I had a roof garden because without music and plants, I couldn't survive. So I went into music. And that too, I discovered a sarangi player. And I fell in love with the sarangi. Unfortunately, that generation of ustads didn't know how to impart knowledge, easily. They learned from their fathers and grandfathers, so that comes down. Now, I started the academy, and it was very nice of Sadruddin Hashwani to give me the whole premises of the Rec Cinema, which now has become, I think, a mall, which is the most important thing in our lives. I began teaching at home. I started a small association called Sampurna, the book Sampurna, which means 7 notes that constitute a rag. And I learned for 2 years with my ustad. He gave me some beautiful bandishes, which were Sufi bandishes and all. It was beautiful. And he was a thorough gentleman. And his technique of teaching, I couldn't understand. But I fell in love with the instrument and I used to play it. And I used to he's moved me to tears. And I used to ask him, I said, there's an incident where I asked him, I said, you're making me cry. Have you ever made anybody cry? He said, yes. I went to Buddha Gaya. There was a conference for 200 sadhus. And he was that kind of a musician. Today, everybody wants to be seen and heard and the wah-wahs have to come. He was not like that. He was always bent, played. He was lost with his instrument, the sarangi, which we've lost in Pakistan. And he'd play that with his head down and he's lost in his music. Suddenly he says, मैंने हिचकियाँ सुने. जब मैंने आँख खोला तो 200 साधु रो रहे थे. So I said, which rag was that? He said, इसका नाम है राम गौरी और बेटा इसको ज़्यादा नहीं गाना. I said, I want to learn it. So he taught it to me. And he had a accompanist who was a tabla nawaz. He was an amazing fellow also. You know, they don't come in their mold anymore. Simple, unassuming. I used to pay him 300 rupees a month. And I think that fellow used to get paid from him 100 or something. And they used to come 3 times a week. That whole generation's wiped out now. They were all gone. So I try to save all that because I think it's very vital. You know, all these things, they have to be remembered. In your archives, you've got to know about this, that there were these people, you know. It's a pity you all couldn't interact with them. Once what happened, I was after they both passed away within 2 years. So, no, the tabla nawaz was still alive. So one day in Tariq Road where we were living, I was practicing my singing. So the musician said that I was singing and I had a Polish friend coming to visit me. And you know, we had Venetian blinds in the window. I'm a pessimist, by the way, but they were closed. And I was practicing for 2 hours, just sargam. Ni sa ga ma pa ni sa ni dha pa ma ga re sa for 2 hours non-stop and with the akar. Suddenly, you know, I thought somebody opened the Venetian blind. And no, it was shut and he was crying. And my Polish friend from outside was saying, why have you stopped? So I said, what happened? So he's crying. He said, baby, you don't know what connection you made with that pitch, that sound, which is in the universe, you know. How did you do that? I said, because of my riyaz. And you know, I was sort of very odd. The next day he comes and we're sitting and I can't sing. I started crying. I said, oh my God, what happened? So the tabla nawaz, now look at this. I never went to any institution, never to art college, nowhere. I learned from life. This chap is telling me, Baby, 3 cheez yaad rakho. Rag, rasoi or pagdi. Now rag, rasoi, pagdi, you'll find it all in the book, beta. Rag, rasoi and pagdi. He says, now you tie a turban on your head. You measure your ingredients and you cook. And it's finger licking. And sometimes it doesn't work. Always remember that rag is like that. That sur, which is encircling in the universe, doesn't come that easy. From this man, not from an academy, not from an institution, from an uneducated tabla fellow who only knows his job. You know, so these people have made a huge impact on my life. So then I started teaching. I decided I've got to impart this. What happened actually was, me and my friend, while we were running Sampurna, we decided to go and listen to Tina Sani sing. She was singing at the Sheraton. And the tabla fellow, with her, we used to come and practice with me. So I came back. While we were listening, she said, you want to go home? I said, yeah. So we left. So when the tabla fellow came the next day, I told him, I said, listen, you say you've been teaching her for 24 years. Why didn't you tell her that when there's a vocalist, she has to be heard? Not 2 tablas, 2 harmoniums, a guitar, a violin, you know. I mean, what kind of music is that? So he went and told her. So the next day she comes to me and says, Appa, I want to learn. So I put her on the Tanpura, the original Tanpura, which has only 4 strings. And I said, you got to start with this. She was used to the harmonium all her life. And all the while that she's been singing. And every time I tried to, she'd draw that. So I taught her for 2 years. She used to come at 8 o'clock in the morning. Apa ko uthao, main aa gayi hu. I used to come down. You know, I was so keen that somebody should help me save this one beautiful, magical world of music. So she'd come and sit here at 8 o'clock, go and pick up her son at 12. So this went on 5 days a week. was very difficult because she had gone so used to the harmonium that it was difficult just to sing with a pitch, with tanpura. So anyway, she was with me for some years. And then our students started coming. So I started teaching. And you got to know that I teach on a piece of paper how to sing. No one in India, nobody in the world will teach like this. And that is why when Zia Mohyuddin came to me and said, do a syllabus, I told him, I am no authority. He said, no, you'll do it. So I said, okay, it took me 6 months to work on a syllabus for Napa. And I gave it, it's a 2-year syllabus. Ustad Hamid Hussain, he was a great sarangi player. He came from Moradabad and he used to tell me stories about his life and all beautiful. Every rag had a message. It was an amazing life. And then what happened was my husband, I used to practice with that tanpura. And my husband would be, and what I would do, you see, I believe that the 7 notes and the other, there are only 12 notes you have to learn. And they're floating in the universe, they're there in the universe. That's why when I connected and they cried, was I caught that perfect pitch. So I decided I've got to learn and train myself. So I would sit with the tanpura, sa, find sa, re, ga, ma, and my husband would be lying on the sofa. And I think he's gone to sleep, so I'd say, stop. He said, why did you stop? Do it. So I would do it. And then he'd say, one day he's telling me, when I managed to get all 7 notes, he's telling me, how do you do it? I said, I don't know. You see, the thing is, if you get one correctly, all of it comes. It's there. And what happened with me was, learning with him and all, my consciousness awoke. Ehsaas paida ho gaya. Everything I'd feel and sense. If I traveled somewhere, wherever in the world I would go, if I saw something beautiful, a stranger, I'd say, hey, look at that, so beautiful. And I felt the need, I have to share and give this to this land, which gave me and my children opportunities. I owe this land and the children. It's the youth. The youth should be so proud. And what has helped me, they say when you give, you get tenfold. Teaching, I learned so much. Given the complexity of the immense ocean of our classical music heritage, it is imperative to document this to maintain the continuity of this vast ocean of musical knowledge. True? This book hopes to introduce to the amateur music aficionado and student the fundamentals of classical tradition, from its syntax and grammar to its gharanas and structures, and by no means is anything more than just a rudimentary introduction to our wonderful musical heritage. Torab. I told him, I said, Sampurna, the money we used to collect, I said, I'll give you 3,000 every month on one condition, that you go to college and school. He continued his school, he did his college, and now he's playing sitar everywhere very well. And there was another family, this chap came to me for 8 years. I converted his entire sitar playing to the gharana style, and I got his 3 little boys admitted in school, and I used to look after their health and all that. Badkhand event, he found out, so he made 10 tarts, 10 modes, and each mode has so many rags. From that, he made it easy for all of us to understand, and for a musical student, it's all here. All of them are here. He went to many places and compiled 10 modes, made it easy for us to follow from various gharanas. So you had like Roshanara Begum. Now she comes from India, a place, you know, most of them stemmed from remote villages in certain areas. Like she was a student of Amir Khan, Abdul Karim Khan. Now he must have learned something from his father, but then he began to develop it further and further, and then he started having students. And his own family members were taught, so that became a gharana. Ghar ke log comes from gharana. So Each one of them belongs to a certain gharana. Like Saffia Begum was in India from Calcutta. She was known as Wajihat Khan, and when she used to sing, but then she became a classical student and she became world renowned then. Amir Khusro, he called himself an Indian Turk. He came from Iran and he changed all the musicals. You see, there are just geniuses who are born with knowledge. So he converted all the tangled knots of rags and all and made it simple. And there used to be Drupad, which was a very fixed sort of method of singing. Sa, na, na. It was like that, Drupad. They've changed it a lot. It's very beautiful also. But when Amir Khusro came in, he said, why not make it melodious? And this art form is called khayal. Khayal literally meaning imagination. So he said, let's let it flow like the river, you know. You see what happens now. I'm teaching you and you become proficient. And then you'll say, well, you see, this is something that is absolutely open. It's not fixed. It's like learning. You learn ABCD cat and then from there you build words and you go on and then you have professors who go. So you have professors and musicologists who are PhDs and masters in it. It's a whole subject. We've taken it so frivolously, you know. Classical music, like I've mentioned in my book, we have 10. The West only has 7. And do you know, ours is based on melody. Western music is all harmony, unless they have 10 other. This is solo, you can sit and sing alone. You can hear a solo instrument. It's amazing. The Beatles went all the way to India, to Pandit Ravi Shankar to learn. Why? And we have ignored it.
This audio has been taken from the Citizens Archive of Pakistan's Oral History Project.